And next up, we have our keynote speaker. The keynote session will be moderated by Michelle Allen, and I'm going to pass it to Marva to talk a little bit about our speakers.
Thank you, Isha. And so I will actually introduce Michelle, who will be the moderator for this session. Michelle Allen is Senior Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer of the MEMIC Group. She also volunteers on the Board of Directors for Prosperity Maine, a nonprofit committed to empowering refugee and immigrant communities. A seasoned human resources and talent development professional, Michelle is a passionate advocate for employee empowerment and strategies to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Michelle earned her MBA from Southern New Hampshire University and holds numerous professional certifications, and she will tell us a little bit more about Dr. Corey.
This is a difficult one to follow. So Charlie, it looks like I don't see you in the audience anymore, but you know, I have so much gratitude for you telling the story of Franco-American immigrants here in Maine. My grandparents were Franco-American immigrants who experienced what happened with the KKK, and that was a story that we all heard as kids and remember the trauma of deeply in our family. And I want to acknowledge, too, that that trauma continues today for our new immigrant neighbors and friends. And so we're continuing to perpetuate that. And this is one opportunity that we have to have some real conversation about how to stop that. So I didn't have that in writing and didn't plan to go there, but thank you so much for that compelling segment. I also want to thank you for the kind introduction. So MEMIC is incredibly proud to once again support Inclusion Maine in its efforts to educate and advocate for inclusion and belonging, both within our workplaces and in our broader communities and the contexts in which we work and play. As a safety company, at MEMIC, we truly understand the full criticality of creating psychologically safe workspaces in today's world, such that all employees can arrive as their full selves and perform in their roles in safe and secure environments. We know that the work of creating diverse teams where belonging is achieved leads to actually better safety outcomes for our people at work. It also leads to higher levels of profitability and stronger business results that further feed our communities. So with that, today I'm also honored to welcome Dr. MEMIC Peter Corey to talk about his experience as one of our few racially diverse CEOs here in Maine. Dr. Corey has spearheaded transformational changes at Unity Environmental University, which have resulted in remarkable growth, both in their student enrollment and faculty and staff recruitment and retention. He has managed this impressive expansion in a small rural town, and we all understand the confines that that can create when we're experiencing growth. Today, we have an opportunity to explore how he and his team have achieved this change and uncover the true story behind that success. Dr. MEMIC Peter Corey is the 11th president and CEO of Unity Environmental University. He's a seasoned executive leader and academic administrator with a passion for innovative, sustainable education. Born and raised in West Africa and educated here in the United States, his firsthand experience with how education can change lives and inspired him to dedicate his career to improving accessibility, flexibility, and affordability of higher education here in Maine and beyond. Under his leadership, Unity Environmental University has become the fastest growing university here in Maine, which is quite a feat. So please welcome Dr. MEMIC Peter Corey to the stage for our moderated conversation. Tippy, don't fall. Are the mics on? Ooh, we're good.
Is this thing on? Yeah, okay.
Thank you for joining me, MEMIC.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and thanks for that intro. It's weird hearing people talk about you while you're in the room. I'm used to people talking about me when I'm not in the room. So.
Sometimes sounds a little bit different.
True.
I get that. So Malik, many individuals who relocate to Maine, and particularly those who immigrate to Maine from other countries, have a particularly unique experience establishing connections and being able to navigate the new community in which they operate. Can you talk a little bit about how you came to Maine and some of the unique challenges you faced and the experiences that you've had along the way?
Sure. I think I was very, very lucky. It's interesting, from the last video, they talked about the Franco-American oppression. So when I actually immigrated to Maine, I moved to Fort Kent, Maine. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Fort Kent, Maine. It was bustling with Franco-American diversity. And I will say that I'm very, very lucky because they really identified themselves at the time as a group that was disenfranchised. And so I got welcomed into that community. I got adopted by that community. I worked in jobs from the parody Shop and Save all the way to the Knights of Columbus cleaning the floors, and then finally got to school. But I think for me, what I realized very, very quickly is when I came to the US and I moved to Maine and I went to Fort Kent, I had to learn a really, really interesting distinction, especially in today's kind of divided world around diversity and inclusion, is that there is a fundamental difference that some of us forget. There is bigotry in this world. Like anybody who says there isn't is just making up stories. But there is also innocent ignorance. And I had to very quickly, growing up and becoming a professional and a student in Fort Kent, Maine, really parsing the difference between people who just were like, ooh, you come from Africa, do you know Tarzan? That was a real question that was asked. And these people weren't bigots, they weren't mean, their worldview was shaped by television. They asked me if I was comfortable wearing Western clothing. It didn't, and so for me, for like the first few months, I was offended. And then I was like, no, I had an opportunity to educate, and I was resilient. So my move to Fort Kent went from being, I'm an outsider, to just, I'm like everyone else, and I've got a unique story that people want to tell. I will tell you why I went to Fort Kent was actually an even more interesting story. I grew up in the west coast of Africa in a nice, small beachside tourist trap, just like coast of Maine. And my parents loved the show MASH. And at a very young age, I would wait for my mom and dad to come home from the restaurant, and we would sit into this nice wooden TV, and we would watch another episode of MASH where the American consulate was a friend of my dad, and they would mail VHS tapes from the US to watch it. And I grew up with Hawkeye Pierce talking to his father via letters about Crab Apple Cove, Maine. I don't know if you've ever watched the show. So when things changed where I'm from and it was time to leave, and I remember working with the immigration folks, and I was an asylee and all of that, and they're like, where do you want to go? And I said, Maine, because I wanted to go to where Crab Apple Cove is. And now, granted, I was very disheartened that Crab Apple Cove doesn't exist, but I think I found the next best thing, the St. John Valley. And up till today, when people ask me now where I'm from, I actually say I'm from the St. John Valley, because I spent more time there than anywhere else, as I was displaced from country to country to country, continent to continent, and ended up growing up in the St. John Valley, working for the humane system, going to school, and making an earning at the parody Shop and Save. I will end with this. I swear I won't go too much. The reason I tell you this story isn't just also because of that. It's because we have to also understand in Maine, as people come in, whether they're moving in from Fort Kent, coming to Lewiston to get a job, they are just as foreign, if you will, as if you're moving from Massachusetts or from Newport or from Serbia. We all come from different places, and we all have different experiences. So when I became a VP, I had a bunch of students at Thanksgiving, and we were talking about why they chose, at the time I worked for Iowa. And this young Japanese student said to me, I came to Iowa because it is the birthplace of Captain Kirk. Now, I started to make fun of this young man and then I was reminded that I went to Maine because of Hawkeye Pierce. And so was lucky. I came to Maine at a time when the people of Fort Kent, the people of St. John Valley welcomed me. But I will tell you, don't underestimate pop culture as a universal unifier of communities. So that's my story.
Thank you for that. That was great. So one of the things that it really reminds me of too is that tired old saying that you're only a Mainer if you're born here is a bunch of baloney.
I only get that when I try to go into the Cumberland Club, that everybody's trying to tell me whose grandfather came from the Mayflower, like I care. Sorry.
I love it. Thank you. All right. So, thinking about your time at Unity, we know that attracting and retaining a diverse workforce in small town Maine can sometimes pose some unique challenges for employers. What strategies have you found at Unity are most effective in sourcing talent in a highly competitive market?
Sure. I mean, that has been a struggle for not only us, but most employers in Maine. I mean, I think right now the unemployment is like 4.2%, and in Maine it's like 3.3. And there's like only 700,000 people or less actually either working or looking for work. I think we have more open positions in Maine right now than we actually have positions. And so that's been a struggle for us. And so we've tried to think about how do we attract people from all over the state of Maine and all over the nation to come to Maine. So a few things that we struggle with, that most of you probably struggle with, is housing. We have actually, on average, we create about 25 new positions a year. Those were positions that we are not filling from previous departures, but because of our growth, we grow about 1,000 to 2,000 students a year. We just need more people in new positions. And it's amazing how many people actually turn down a job because they can't find affordable housing in Maine. And when I talk to folks about that, it seems to be an immovable problem. So housing is one. I think the other piece too is, for us, we realized very, very quickly that if we were going to attract people to Maine, we had to figure out a way to really differentiate, and this is where I lose the crowd. We really had to differentiate about how these individuals are going to integrate within their communities and how those communities are going to welcome them, but also about the professional standards in Unity, that they are going to come in as a professional and really delineate the fact between we are your place of work where you identify and we have a set of consistent standards that you will work by regardless of where you are from and what you believe in, versus making sure that they're integrated within their community to respect their culture. So for us, it was kind of separating as I personally now interview every candidate who is looking to work at Unity. And I actually start with something quite jarring. Unity is not your community. It is not your family. It is not your cult. And it is not a marriage. We are a professional organization, and we will do everything for you to succeed. But we have an obligation to make sure that wherever our employees settle, that they are welcomed, they're integrated, and the like. So for us, we try to do things like relocation. Sometimes we will rent a number of apartments and homes and have people live there for like 6 months while they're finding a place to live. We've tried to work on affordable housing. But at the end of the day, I think what we have found is we have to be consistent, we have to be honest, we have to be clear when people are moving about the good and the bad. I would recommend anybody who is in a hiring manager position, just be very honest about what it means to be an employee and a citizen of Maine, and I think we'll be fine. Because at the end of the day, you will be amazed how much the young farmer from Fort Kent, Maine, versus the immigrant from Sudan, how resilient they are, how much they can step up to the challenge. And let us not belittle their resilience by just assuming that accent doesn't mean a lack of understanding of English. Until you've spoken Franglais, you have no idea how difficult it is to understand that. But at the same time, I think, how do we create consistent policies? How do we make sure that our human resources is working with folks to integrate within their community, but how we make sure that the expectations are clear. So for us, one of the things we did a few years ago because of the Maine wages and housing is we increased our minimum wage at Unity for any position no less than $50,000. And so whether you're a data entry specialist answering the phone, and we also separated the differentiation between hourly and salaried PTO and retirement. So if you work at Unity, whether you are a data entry specialist making $50,000 an hour, you get 8% retirement match. You get the same 4 weeks of PTO. So sometimes separating these differentiations and making them just, if you are an employee, you get these benefits, has helped us attract talent, has helped us retain talent. And I think that as a state, we have a lot of work to do to attract and retain, because I don't know if you read the latest report, but the brain drain in Maine is real. And I know that sometimes we oversimplify that as this, that, or the other, but at the end of the day we are an aging state. Our industries tend to be much more seasonal. We don't tend to be very friendly to people building businesses in Maine that might be foreign to us as a concept. And our employees can't afford to live near the towns where they work. And I think that is something that we at Unity are trying to think about, and we will continue to work on. It's not easy, but I think that this state deserves to have the kind of workforce that any other states has.
Excellent, thank you. So, I think you've just provided us with some really good specific tactical matters that each of us can take back to our employers, particularly when we talk about benefits design in a way that creates equality across the board, and living wage. Living wage is a huge issue here in Maine and beyond, and it's also one that I would encourage everyone to explore. Also, consider taking a look at some of the ALICE reporting offered by the United Way around what it looks like to be asset limited and income constrained in our communities here, because it's a real problem that we're all facing. So thank you for touching upon that.
One more thing. The other thing we had to do, because people can't find housing in a driving distance, is we've created a bit of a hybrid workplace that allows people to be able to do 1 or 2 days remotely in order to, I have employees who currently live in New Hampshire who drive into work at Unity because of housing constraints.
It's incredible, and it shows their commitment as well, right, to the organization and to their careers and the impact that they want to have as well. So that's great. So beyond talent acquisition, another critical issue that we all face is the growing sort of realm of diverse needs of our client base. So thinking about that and the communities we serve, how does Unity continue to adapt to these shifting needs as you think about your student base? And what role does technology play in supporting you with that?
That is a great question. I think, how many of you here work in higher education or higher education adjacent? Okay. Sorry, the last time I was here, there was a lot more of the leaders in the room, so I was just trying to figure out who else was here. But we in higher education have great rhetoric about access. We have great rhetoric about caring, about transfer students and adult students, but let's be very direct with ourselves. We still have a system that celebrates how many people we deny, not how many people we admit. We say without education, you can't change the world. We quote Nelson Mandela like he is the president of our university. But yet we send out press releases that say we only accepted 3.9% of the students here. That's how special we are. Then we tell migrant workers, we tell first-generation Americans, we tell young farmers from rural Maine that if you can't afford to live in the dorms and take out a substantial loan and go to ice cream socials, then you will be in the alternative wing where, we'll teach you, online, or we'll teach you workforce development. But that can't be for credit because the real students get for credit. Then we say dumb stuff like, we've got students and we've got transfers. We've got, up till today, most of Maine colleges, all accredited. by the same accreditor that accredits Harvard don't accept each other's credits. And then we say to students, why are you taking so much loans and taking so much longer? We cannot be hypocrites in this state and say education is an economic driver, but act like privilege and exclusivity is the only measure of value. So what did we do at Unity? So we said at Unity that there is a place for that student who is lucky enough, who is privileged enough to get that scholarship, to be able to live that 4-year bucolic experience on a residential campus. And we love them for it, and we will charge them for it, and we will support them for it. But we designed Unity as a private system where each and every one of our audiences, working adults, freshmen, computer students, has their own faculty, their own staff, their own PLL, their own pedagogy, their own ethos, so that we don't have to ask any student to compromise and make any student feel like they are secondary to the real college. And so once we've done that, we have grown from historically about 500 residential students to over 10,000 full-time students. And still some people in Maine think we're closed, which is hilarious. If you haven't heard that, don't look me up. Because at the end of the day, we stopped prioritizing one modality. I would love to have 5,000 residential students because, believe it or not, that is the most lucrative business model for education. Room and board is, I mean, we own the buildings, right? So what we've done is also thought about, and to your point about how do we support students, we also realize that even the most well-intentioned institution has not changed their calendar and their pedagogy beyond you need to take 4 classes or 5 classes to be considered full-time. Therefore, if you are a working adult or if you want to partner with some company to say, bring in semi-skilled workers and we'll work with you, they have to be part-time because they're not taking 4 classes. So at Unity, we've thrown all of that away. And how we are helping employers is we're saying we can design a calendar that's 2 weeks at a time, 4 weeks at a time, 8 weeks at a time, semester, and we will work with you so that your employees can work with you full-time, part-time, 3/4 time, and still get a full-time education and getting the benefits of Pell and the other things that they need. Earn and learn is where we are trying to go. So for us, that's what we've done. We've basically said, we will not tell the student how they should learn. We will not tell the student where they will learn. We will not tell the student what to think, but we will create an environment where we will teach them based on the scientific method, appreciative inquiry, planetary boundaries, because we believe that in the future, whether you are in IT or whether you are in hospitality, if you don't understand the relationship between the economy, people, and the environment, you are not a 21st century employee. And with technology, as an environmental science institution, I have been ridiculed because we are embracing artificial intelligence. I have a challenge for my employees. And if some of them are here today, and you can ask them that I have started to look at every position at my institution, not as overhead, but as what value do they bring to the institution. And as a result, how can they embrace AI so that by 2030, the way I made a promise in 2015, that no employee at Unity will make less than 50 grand, and we were able to honor that, no employee at Unity by 2030 will make less than 100 grand. And that is a promise that I have made publicly, and that is a promise that's only going to happen if we embrace technology, look at our employees and say, this is not a country club. Yes, we don't have summers off. And no, you can't golf and then tell me you're working. Unless you're in fundraising, that's a whole other conversation. But if you can forgo your side hustle and make me your main hustle, you will make 100 grand, and I'm not asking you to work 80 hours. So technology is supporting my students. Right now, my students can talk to an AI agent and go from, tell me more about Unity until they register, and not talk to a human. But at any point, they can click a button and they can talk to a human. Guess what that does for my humans? They are dealing with less of the same question over and over again, and now are dealing with more meaningful stuff. So for me, we have become a tech stack. LMS, learning management system, IS, information system, CRM. We are a $25 million tech stack that we can launch a university for credit anywhere in the world, in any mosque, in any church, in any hospital, in any bank, within 12 weeks or less for any curriculum. And we charge less than most state institutions. And that is how we are using technology for access, for inclusivity, because the third daughter of a bodega owner in Lewiston, Maine, is less likely to leave home and go somewhere else to learn. And we are going to bring unity to her, to him, and to them. Because my mantra over the last 6 months has been simple. Wherever there is people, there will be unity. And we're going to do that through technology, and we've connected some of the smartest faculty in the world to work with our students. And that's how we're trying to bring technology and workforce to Maine.
Thank you. It was a very passionate response. I really appreciate it. I will say, yesterday I took a class on how to improve my prompts in ChatGPT. It's not easy.
But it is interesting. Require is a strong word. Because, I ask my people to at least spend an hour a day playing with AI. Because if you don't understand AI, you will never be able to use it. And so it's interesting. I actually have a meeting like once a week where that's all we do is we talk about what did people play with, what did people do, how did people use it, how people fear it. Because AI is not like a Microsoft Word. It's not something that you are going to legislate and teach. It's something that you have to experience. And so we have made it okay at Unity to just have fun with AI and make some mistakes.
Well, and I think, too, the forward-looking view that it's actually one of the tools in our kit to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? I mean, it is a powerful tool that provides access to knowledge and to resources needed. And so keeping that in mind and considering it as part of our toolkit as we're designing our strategies, I think is a really important reminder for all of us.
I'll tell you a funny. I have 4 of my employees who have admitted this to me. I'm sure there are more. They have taken every piece of writing, every speech, every minute, everything that I have ever done, and they've put it into one of their machines so that they can talk to it to figure out how I'm going to respond to their questions as a way to learn more about how to work with me. And I know it sounds weird, but honestly, I think our students, last year we have something called Spruce. It's supposed to be an online chatbot to help students with tutoring. I have about 10,000 students. At any one term, we have 6,000 registered. We had over 100,000 conversations. Our students went to Spruce before they even talked to a human. So you can help your humans be significantly more valuable if you teach them, help them, empower them to partner with AI instead of fear it.
Thank you. So switching gears a little bit, I guess what we're going to do is this will probably be the last question that I pose of MEMIC, and then we'll open it up to the audience so that if you'd like to ask any questions, you can do so. So many employers and communities today are grappling with uncertainty and instability. When we think about reflecting on the challenges like COVID-19 or shifting governmental priorities and economic instabilities, what lessons have you learned that you are applying as you navigate these uncertainties today and look towards the future?
Ooh, that's a toughie. I think for me personally, what I have tried to do at Unity is give my employees the only thing I can give them, which is consistency and honesty. There are things I cannot fix. There are things outside of the institution's control. But when my employee walks into work, it's like an episode of Severance. They get to leave the world behind. They get to leave the baggage behind, and they get to know that as long as they are serving our students, there are only 3 employees at Unity: those who generate revenue, those who support students, those who build infrastructure. And as long as you're doing that, you don't have to worry. We post because higher education data is 3 years old. We post our revenue, our expenses, our open positions. I give more information than any one faculty or staff member might need, because I can't control the world. But what I can control is that while they are at work, they have one less thing to look over their shoulder for. They have one less thing to worry about, that they can feel safe, that they can feel productive. So I know this might not be the answer you're looking for, but give your employees stability, give your employees consistency, even if they don't like it. Share with your employees what is really going on. Handle the bad ones, promote the good ones, and then give them one thing less to worry about. And so for us at Unity, we have already started to have the conversation. What is our red line? And if you're not having that conversation, I think you are having your head in the sand. And that is not, no offense, but that is not a conversation that HR should be having. That's an association the top people at your leadership should be having, including HR and middle managers. What is your red line? What is it that you are willing to absorb within your organization to make your people feel welcomed without selling out on your values? I hire a lot of Gen Zs as a fast-growing institution. I'm very proud that in Maine we've got Gen Zs all the way to baby boomers working at Unity, and I'm very proud of that. They bring a lot of different perspectives. And one thing I've learned about the Gen Zs is they actually want clarity. They want consistency. And so one of the things that sometimes they ask me in the interview is, do my values as a university align with theirs? And my response shocks them. It doesn't have to. What you have to decide as an employee is, are you willing to work within the standards that we put in place? And if it's offensive to you, don't work here. But it doesn't have to align. It just doesn't have to discriminate. So come here as your workplace, live out loud in your community, and we will support you. And that has made some people walk away. But if you try to create an organization that is completely reliant on bending to every perspective, then you don't have scalability. And that is a really hard truth. So I'll end by saying, I've told my people, I am not your community. I am not your government. I am not your cult. I am your professional organization where you earn a living, support access to students, but I'll give you whatever support you need to make sure you live out loud where you live. And that's how we've done it.
I like the idea of living out loud. Thank you for that, Malik. So with that, I'd like to open it up to the audience. Do folks have any questions that they'd like to ask in this moment?
Balancing people's values and beliefs and supporting them, but also not necessarily aligning. What are some ways that as an organization, your organization is able to support people, kind of across the board, whether or not they feel they, that they align? Do you have any examples that you could share with us?
Absolutely. So the language I tried to use, for example, is professional standards. They are professional standards that we have at the organization, whether you are from Fort Kent or from Massachusetts, because this is our expectation of behavior. These are expectations of communication. This is our expectations. What I don't want, sometimes we cross beyond. It is okay to have people not the same beliefs as you working in an organization. What is not okay is to say that you are better than them. Or, right, it's okay to have, I have my own beliefs about AI. You have your own beliefs about AI. But the institution, when they hired you, said, this is our standard for AI. So create a space where people can live their truth, but not impose it on somebody else. And that is a very, very hard. I almost once or twice a year, I get some president from some other college who tells me that, for example, we should not allow Republicans into the college. And I'm like, you're an idiot. The other one I get a lot is you should not allow climate change deniers into your college. You're an idiot. We are where we are as a society because of echo chambers. We have lost the ability to have tough conversations. And, you know, Yankee frugality and Maine grit could save us when, if we just lean into it and stop being so careful and being so offended for other people that we realize that we live in a world where the global economy doesn't care. We have to treat our people fairly. We have to treat them right. But it is okay to work in an organization where 3 people don't have the same values. So for me, it's about professional standards. For me, if you, however you identify, you should be allowed to identify that in your workplace. You should not be allowed to say, if you don't agree with me, you don't belong here. For us, our red line is simple. We are an evidence-based institution that is undergirded by the liberal arts and sciences that uses the scientific method to do research and to make arguments. If you don't want to live in that world, you can't work at Unity. That is not discrimination, that is just scalability. Apart from that, support your people, but be clear and don't try to be like that TV show Community, where people's identity, people's differences becomes more of a joke than being respected.
We have time for one more question.
Yeah, I have a quick question in regard to your experience integrating here in Maine. And obviously, you're one of the successful immigrant persons I've probably seen here in Maine. And what do you think people who are here now facing all the challenges that you know you've gone through, being a stranger, being somebody who's now belonging here, and what do you think they are missing, and what can you tell them?
Do you mean the people like me or the people
The immigrants.
The immigrants. I think that it goes back to my...
In a professional way.
I think it goes back to the original conversation where I said there is a significant difference between bigotry and ignorance. I have faced more ignorance in Maine than I have faced bigotry. However, for me, my rise to becoming a CEO was not easy. I was laughed out of rooms. I was underestimated. I was vilified by people much richer and much more less inclusive while saying that they care about the environment and people. So as an immigrant, you have to understand that you are entitled to nothing in the workplace. I think you should be entitled to civil rights in your community and in your states. But in the workplace, you are entitled to nothing. And if you have to understand that you might have to work a little bit harder. Don't ask women. They've had to do it since World War II, right? Now being women and an immigrant. Whoa, I mean, seriously. So at the end of the day, I come to work every day knowing that somebody does not respect me. Somebody does not think I belong there. And somebody is going to dismiss my intelligence because of their bias. I stopped being angry about it. Because at the end of the day, there are more people in any organization, in any town, in any city in this state that will see you for who you are than for what you cannot do. So my advice to you is work twice as hard, out-hustle. Know you are not entitled to anything at work. Know that somebody is going to put your resume in the trash. And decide once and for all, are you just going to wear that and say, that's why I cannot do anything in the States, or are you going to succeed and be invited to the same table of those people who told you you don't belong? That is my advice to every immigrant, every minority. Stop saying, you owe me. Start saying, I will outwork you, I will out-hustle you, I will whatever it is that you need to do, because you are trying to feed your family. You are trying to make a life for yourself. We all came to this state because where we were from did not give us the opportunity. So let's not get this far and then say, just because Jane Doe or Jack Doe treated me like shit, sorry for my French, or did not hire me, or said something stupid because they're ignorant, is a reason for me to get so bent out of shape that I hurt my family. You want to make people uncomfortable? Be successful. Then treat them better than they will ever treat you. And that's how we change.
Thank you, Malik. And thank you to Inclusion Maine for allowing us to join you today. Looking forward to the rest of the day's agenda.